So I don't know about you, but I love checklists. I have been a list maker for years. I've previously kept lists for vacation packing, hiking day trips, and I even created an Excel spreadsheet for groceries because that's just how I am. And I'm proud to say that my daughter has recently taken that over and she created her own Excel document, so I passed that along to her. But keeping a checklist became even more important when we got our first rig several years ago, and is still important all these years and all these trips later. The last thing you want when you get partway down the road is to find that you maybe left an awning out, or you left your pressure regulator connected to the campground pedestal and now you need a new one. With so many things inside of an RV and outside that you have to pack away, secure, move, it's inevitable that something will get forgotten or overlooked during your teardown process. So having a checklist helps to ensure that you don't forget any of those important steps and get to your destination and find that, some oops has happened. So in a minute, I am going to explain how I created our checklist, and I will go over how you can personalize your own to fit your rig and your situation. All right, so there's several different ways of keeping a checklist. You can either create one with the old-fashioned paper and pen method. You can get a note app for your phone, or there are a couple of RV checklist apps that you can actually download for your phone. I prefer the paper and pencil method though, because I like being able to see it. On the phone, you have to kind of scroll down. I don't get to see the whole list in one glance. So I'm kind of old-fashioned in this way, and I like the paper checklist that I can just print out. I can change it as need be. It's just a Word document. As things change over time, I adjust them and then print out a new one, and there we go. So I will put links to the 2 RV checklists that I have found. One of them you have to pay for, it's only $1.99. The other one's free, but I will put the links down in the description if you're interested in getting one of those. Before I get started with all that, there are a couple of important points that I want to make. The first off is no matter who does what, it's really important that both of you, if you're traveling with a spouse, that both of you can do the entire teardown and setup process by yourselves. You never know when some medical emergency is going to happen, whether it's just somebody throwing out their back and not being able to bend over, or a true medical emergency like a heart attack. You don't have to do the whole teardown and setup every single time, but it's good for both partners to know how to do the whole thing. With that being said, however, I recommend dividing the tasks however you want to do it, but divide the tasks and put one person in charge of each set of tasks. So for instance, Jeremy does the majority of the outside stuff, and I do the majority of the inside stuff. Now, before we get ready to take off, he will come inside and he will check, he'll do a double check over the inside, and I'll go outside and do a walk around and check all of that stuff. And that way we're each looking at each other's areas with a fresh set of eyes. And finally, I highly recommend that you stick within your own lane and don't help the other person. So for us, most of my stuff is inside, and most of it's done the day before we actually take off. So the morning of, I get done pretty quickly and I don't really have anything to do. And so I've learned that if I get done and I'm just kind of waiting on Jeremy, that I'll either take Wicket for a walk, or I will go and ask Jeremy if he needs any help and only do what he wants me to do. And we learned this the hard way because I went out and helped him one day and saw what I thought was a bag of trash and tossed it away, and it ended up being his freshly cleaned septic connections. And so, yeah, so we got in that night. We have no septic connections. That ended up costing us $25 on Amazon for new septic connections. So don't help each other unless they ask. You know, the other reason for that is that we both get into our own routines. And when our routine is thrown off because we bring somebody new into it, things can get missed or mixed up. So try to stay within your own wheelhouse and ask if the other person needs help. My original list was pretty basic and included things that are pretty common to every RV. It wasn't until we actually got into our first RV that I started going room by room and writing down everything that needed to be secured, packed up, moved, whatnot. And I happen to start in the kitchen because that is the first place that I pack up. You can start in whatever room that you would like to. I've got my checklist divided by rooms, so I've got kitchen, living room, bathroom, bedroom, and then outside. And I tried to do the list in chronological order, so kind of the order in which I typically do things. So, you know, for instance, the last items, I clean the cat box as one of the very last items. I clean it into the trash can. I then empty the trash, put a new bag in, and then switch the fridge to the propane. The very last thing that we do is turn off the air conditioning or the heat, but that's only done once we unhook from shore power. All right, so this list has obviously changed over time as we have taken more and more trips and we've adjusted the fifth wheel to meet our needs and our lifestyle. So certain things that we had before, like on our very first trip, we found that we have a sliding glass door in our living room. And we got to our campsite and the sliding glass door, the screen was barely hanging on. And so for a while there, we would always remove the screen and tuck it in somewhere here in between the kitchen and the dining room. And we got tired of doing that, and Jeremy found that just by tightening the screws on the door frame, that we could get it in there really tight and it doesn't move. So I previously had removed screen door, and I now have just changed it to tighten screws on screen door. The other thing that we were able to completely remove off of our list was on our very first trip out, after we got our washing machine, we got to our campground and I went and opened up the closet doors and found that our washing machine had walked its way off of the shelf that it was sitting on and was tilted on the floor of our closet. It had partially crushed, you know, some of our laundry soap. I keep those in a tote. We ended up having to pull the washing machine off of its shelf and put it on the floor of the closet for the next several trips. And we finally went and figured out a way to secure it. I can show you that later. We took L brackets and attached the L bracket to the actual shelf and then to the washing machine down at the bottom of the frame. And so far we've had several trips now and the washing machine has not walked itself off, because I really don't want that to happen again. We were lucky that none of the cords and the hoses and stuff, none of that came off. It didn't damage the dryer connection or anything. So those are just some things that have changed over the course of time that we've found. When you start to think about your own list, I recommend that you go room to room throughout your rig. Start anywhere you like, anywhere that makes sense to you. I like to start in the kitchen. So I do things like I have these collapsible, reusable shopping totes. And one of the first things I do is I take all of my spices. I keep all of my cooking spices in these little, they're like M Design. I got them from Amazon, and I've got 3 sets of these. So I put these down in the base, and then I get all my my oils and my other spices that sit at the back of my stove. I put those in the tote, get those all tucked away. Those sit on the floor while we're driving. One of the very last things that we do on moving day is the coffee pot and the toaster get put away. So the coffee pot gets put in the sink and it rides in the sink. We haven't had any mishaps. And the toaster actually gets tucked away in a cabinet. I've learned to put the toaster inside of a shopping bag, disposable shopping bag, because after our first trip out and I went to pull the toaster out, and even though I had cleaned it really well, it left crumbs all over my cabinet. So now I just tuck it in a bag, throw it in the cabinet, and then all those crumbs stay in the bag and they're not all over my cabinet. But so go room to room, think about your rig, what you have. Like for instance, we have a vinyl record player. Not a lot of people do, but that's one of those things that we have to unplug and set, kind of tuck in and really secure to make sure that the needle doesn't bounce all over and it doesn't get damaged. But think about what you have. Do you have any breakables that need to come down, or that need to get strapped down? Anything that's going to walk off, like our washing machine. Think about things that are going to move. Things that you don't want damaged, possibly bungee cording your cabinets closed. I've never had cabinets come open. I have had drawers. And so that's something that you want to make sure when you pull your slides out, when you get to your destination. Before you start pulling your slides out, go and do a walkthrough and make sure that nothing has shifted and is in the way of those slide tracks, because we did have a small portable little fan that got stuck in there, and it kind of got damaged a little bit. Could have possibly damaged the slide. It didn't. And we also had a drawer that had come out and was in the way, and luckily I caught it in time, but it did kind of shift the drawer just a little bit before I noticed it. So when you get to your destination, always do a walkthrough to make sure that nothing is in the way of those slides, because you can do, some serious damage either to your items or to your slide mechanisms. So just something to be mindful of. You get ready to head out for the day. It's travel day, it's the day before travel day, whatever. Go ahead and get your list out. If you're using a paper copy, print it off. And you'll probably find, at least on the first trip, if not on future trips, that there are things that you've forgotten. That's okay. Just make a note of it. Add it later when you have time. So you've got it on your future trips. But print out that fresh copy. Make sure not to check anything off until it's actually done. It can be easy to check it off with the intention of getting right to it, and then something gets in the way and it doesn't actually get done. Since we're in the Christmas season, making a list and checking it twice, good advice. Make sure, even if everything's checked off right before you head out, go through and just verify, okay, yes, we did that, yes, we did that. All right, so as a recap, once your list is made, no matter how you choose to make it, whether you use one of the already pre-populated RV checklists, you use a notebook app on your phone, or you choose to create an old-fashioned paper and pen copy, go ahead and get your list going. Divide the tasks up however you see fit, but make sure that one person is in charge of each area, and then double check each other right before you pull out to make sure that nothing got overlooked. Look at it with a fresh set of eyes. And hopefully by doing these things and following a checklist, you'll avoid some of the major and minor oopses that we've had and other people have had. Now, ours have all been very minor, thank goodness, but I have seen on groups that I'm in some pretty major oopses that probably could have been avoided if the people had been using a checklist of some sort. All right, so if you have any tips or tricks that you've found that work really well for creating your own teardown checklist and following it, please leave it down in the comments down below. As always, hit those like and subscribe buttons. We would appreciate it. Happy travels. We'll see you next time. Bye.